The world ended, not with a bang but with a slow, agonizing decay. Its once vibrant pulse faded into silence, snuffed out by the relentless greed of its so-called apex species. We, man, the self-appointed god, ravenously consumed, ravaged, and destroyed until there was nothing left to take. Whatever remains of us now no longer claims the title of people. The very word feels poisoned, steeped in the legacy of death and ruin we so eagerly crafted. It started subtly, as all great tragedies do. A centuries-long abandonment of the divine left temples empty, sacred groves silent, and the heavens dark. One by one, the flames of belief were extinguished. For a while, a single ember persisted, faint and fragile. But it too eventually succumbed to the void. With the gods gone, a gaping emptiness consumed humanity, and from this hollowness came despair. The void was unbearable. The powerful exploited this despair, twisting it into a grotesque doctrine of self-worship. The ego became sacred, humanity its own deity. We crowned ourselves rulers of a universe that neither cared for nor acknowledged us. But the worship of self is an empty faith. No wealth, no conquest could fill the spiritual chasm we had created. The more we consumed, the more insatiable our hunger grew. As the masses starved for meaning, the privileged few grew fat on their suffering. They whispered lies, urging the desperate to find peace in their emptiness, to worship the hollow shell of their own existence. But there is no peace in a wounded soul. We became beasts, ravenous and thoughtless, devouring everything in sight, earth, sky, and sea, until there was nothing left but barren wastelands. And then the earth struck back. Her vengeance was swift, unrelenting. Wildfires consumed forests. Earthquakes shattered cities. Floods and storms erased entire civilizations. Yet, even as the ground split and the skies raged, humanity persisted in its madness. Under the command of the affluent few, the masses continued to pillage the dying planet, as if sheer force of will could keep the end at bay. But famine came, an unforgiving plague that devoured even the illusion of abundance. Crops withered, rivers dried, and the starving turned on one another. Wars erupted over scraps, conflicts without end. The powerful retreated to hidden bunkers, leaving the rest of us to tear each other apart. They had orchestrated this collapse, longed for it, and watched from the shadows as the world burned. Then came the diseases, as if death itself had unleashed its full arsenal. Plague after plague ravaged the survivors. Among them, one stood out, Manticore, the man-eater disease. It turned humans into monsters, driven by an insatiable hunger for flesh. The afflicted burned with fever before descending into madness, their bodies wasted but their appetite relentless. Some burned to death, their suffering mercifully brief. Others endured, forever marked by their monstrous appetites. The war against the man-eaters was horrific. Billions died, their blood staining the earth red. Those who survived bore scars deeper than flesh. When the disease finally vanished, it left behind a shattered world and a haunted humanity. The remnants of mankind rallied, seeking to rebuild, to find justice for the atrocities committed by the man-eaters. They rounded up the survivors of the plague, debated their fates, and ultimately condemned them to death. But then, the rat-men returned. The same gilded parasites who had orchestrated the world's downfall crawled out of their bunkers, draped in gold and diamonds, demanding mercy for the man-eaters. They cried genocide, their voices venomous, their motives twisted. Their words reignited old hatreds, and war broke out once more. This time, a war to end all wars. This was no ordinary war. It was a descent into pure madness, an inferno that consumed what little humanity remained. The skies burned, the ground cracked, and the very air became poison. Nuclear fire lit the heavens, and the world plunged into eternal night. The earth, once teeming with life, became a frozen wasteland, cloaked in ash and silence. I remember the night it began. The sky, once dotted with stars, erupted in bursts of light, miniature suns that bloomed into monstrous fungal clouds. I laughed as I watched, a bitter, hollow sound. There was no escaping the irony. We had dragged ourselves into oblivion, clawing at the edges of existence in a final, spiteful act of self-destruction. When I awoke the next day, the sun was gone, hidden behind a shroud of ash. The world had become a frozen tomb. Life, stubborn and defiant, clung on in pockets, but humanity was no more. What remains of us are shadows, ghosts of a bygone age. We wander the wastelands, haunted by memories of what we were and what we've done. I live alone now, far from the ruins of civilization. The last human I saw was a rat man, starved and desperate, demanding food and shelter. His arrogance, his entitlement, was his undoing. I ended him slowly, methodically, watching as the cold claimed him. His cries of pain faded into the wind, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, just a hollow emptiness. Once, I had a family, a wife, Anna, and 3 daughters, Sophie, Zoe, and Ophelia. The disease took them all, leaving me alone with my guilt and grief. I survived the fever but was cursed with the hunger. I refused to harm the living, scavenging instead from the dead. It was a wretched existence, desecrating graves and feeding on corpses to stave off the madness. But even that wasn't enough to escape the nightmares. For years, I dreamt of their deaths, their cries echoing in my mind. I saw them burn, their bodies racked with pain, their voices begging for help. The guilt consumed me, drove me to the brink. But now, even the nightmares have faded. The memories remain, but they no longer carry weight. Perhaps it's the isolation, but perhaps I've simply ceased to be human. I don't fear death anymore. It feels inevitable, like a long-lost friend. Until it comes, I'll continue wandering this frozen, desolate world, a ghost among the ruins of humanity. We were gods once, or so we thought. Now, we're nothing more than shadows, remnants of a species that devoured itself in its insatiable hunger for more. Maybe the earth will heal one day. Maybe life will start anew, unburdened by the curse of man. But I won't be here to see it. This is our legacy. Ashes, silence, and an endless winter. And perhaps that's exactly what we deserve.
Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to listen to similar stories in future.